It is absolutely perfect baseball weather in Southern California as the Texas Rangers try to make it a clean 3-game sweep. The Dodgers did it to the Rangers, don't forget, last year in their first matchup in interleague play at the ballpark in Arlington. And the Rangers also come in with the 3rd best record in Major League Baseball, behind only the Indians and the Atlanta Braves at 35-22. Ray, that is the 2nd best start in team history after 57 games. Well, the Dodgers, well, they have sputtered 28-29, a game under the 500 mark, 5 games behind the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that is the good news, because they're only a game under the 500 mark and only 5 back.
Well, I talked to Davey before the ball game, and he's a great friend, and I know that his philosophy has always been to dominate people. But what has happened here, he hasn't been able to do that. A lot of things hasn't gone right. His offense has not hit in the clutch, and his starting pitching have not gone deep in the game and put a lot of pressure on the bullpen. As a result from that, he's right where he wants to be. He says all he wants to do is not shoot himself in the foot or his team in the foot. Here he is, just 5 games back, and not anything's going well for him. He's got 125-plus games left.
So tonight it's a matchup of a couple of former Oriole managers. Davey Johnson in one dugout and Johnny Oates in the other. And as Johnny Oates had a great run over with the Texas Rangers, 2-time American League Manager of the Year, winning 2 out of the last 3 Western Division titles, and they came out on a phenomenal run, winning 12 of their last 14, trying to sweep the Dodgers tonight. Looking at the lineup for Johnny Oates, brought to you by Rolling Rock. Tom Goodwin will lead things off, the former Dodger and Royal, then a former Angel at second base, Mark McLemore. What a offensive look. Rusty Greer out in left hits third. Juan Gonzalez, the phenomenal one over his last 11. 4 home runs, 372 clip. He's out in right field in the cleanup spot. He's knocked in 11 runs as well. Rafael Palmeiro, he's knocked in the game winners in each of the last 2 nights. He's over at first base. He's been the DH for 51 of the first 53 this year. And it's Pudge Rodriguez behind the plate. Todd Zeal is over at third, former UCLA Bruin and Dodger. Royce Clayton played his high school ball here in Southern California. Hits 8th. And right-hander Mark Clark, a former National Leaguer, is back in the National League tonight at Dodger Stadium.
Well, hardly needs any introduction. Kevin Brown, one of the most dominant pitchers in the game right now, sitting on a 6-3, 1 loss. Features that great sinker. Everybody's come to know him a lot like they did Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan. You see him seemingly, it seems like he starts about every 3rd games, but he has the great numbers still, 75 hits and 85 innings pitched, just 25 walks, 80 punch outs, so he's still throwing the ball extremely well, getting in a groove. And I spoke to him actually in the dugout, not in the dugout, but in the clubhouse prior to the game. And he's building a big home in Macon, Georgia. And I guess he spoke to me because we're fellow Georgians, because he doesn't speak to anybody before a ball game.
He's got a game face on just a few hours before. Tom Goodwin coming up empty. 3 straight down the middle. The cutter, the runner, the second pitch. And what an effective beginning for Kevin Brown, looking for his 7th win of the year. So Goodwin gone by way of strikes. Trinidad Hubbard, the one to look for, and the man in the middle. He is filling in for the injured Devon White, and also strength up the middle. We talk about it so often. Pena behind the plate. Angel Pena subbing for Todd Hundley, and Hundley really had his problems last night. 6 stolen bases for the Texas Rangers. Fly ball off the bat of Mark McLemore, pushing the young man we were talking about, Hubbard, back just shy of the track for out number 2.
Well, you'll find with Kevin Brown or any pitcher that has that kind of dominating stuff, that he's around the plate, hitters go up there and try to get him as soon as they can. Generally, his first pitch or 2 is his fattest pitch. Once he gets ahead of you, he sets you up and goes to that really nice sinker, the changeup, and that nasty slider. So you see guys going at him swinging early in the count.
Rusty Greer doesn't waste any time. Another liner for Hubbard. And a very quick inning for right-hander Kevin Brown, matching up against his old teammates and trying to avoid a sweep.
In the studio, Midas takes us to Shea Stadium. The Mets were down 3-0 in the bottom of the 9th, rallied, and with 2 men down, Brian McRae down the line against Billy Koch, drives in Luis Lopez. The Mets tie it up with 3 runs in the bottom of the inning. It is now in the 10th inning, tied at 3. And in case you were with us earlier, it's still raining in Colorado. We'll keep you posted. 11-10 Rockies in a delay.
All right, Larry, thank you, and welcome back to Southern California. Joel Meyers along with Ray Knight. Mark Clark The matchup of right-handers out of the hill for the Texas Rangers tonight. ZY Eric Young leads it off with a high fly ball to deep left center field. Going back is Rusty Greer to the wall, leaping up. He can't get it. Does he? Yes, he's got it. Incredible. Rusty Greer, it looked like he pulled it back, because I saw it disappear over the wall, Ray.
It definitely disappeared. I saw it the same way you do. We're up here about 4 tiers and 50 feet above the field, and it looked like that ball had disappeared. Watch this great play. Finding the wall, not jumping into the wall, elevating, leaving the wall 3 or 4 feet away from it. You young outfielders, you can't get up into that wall or it'll stop your ascent. And what he did right there was he got there, found the warning track, timed his jump, and made a great play. That's all.
Took away the 3rd home run of the year for Eric Young, who was the Dodger hero last night, just to get him into extra innings. Jose Vizcaino subbing for the injured Mark Grzelcyk at shortstop. Takes it over for called strike 1. Has this game ever started at rapid fire pace? 5 pitches for Brown as that's drilled up the middle. Clark has to get out of the way. And it's a single for Vizcaino. Rolling Rock lineup for the Dodgers. Eric Young and Vizcaino got away from us early. Vizcaino aboard at first with 1 down. He'll be followed now by Gary Sheffield. Sheffield playing so well out in left field. Mondesi in the cleanup spot, then Karros, Hansen, Hubbard, Pena, and Brown out of the hill. And you can see what Sheffield has done over the last 6 games. Sounds like he's got the respect of his manager, too.
Certainly does. Davey talked about him before the game and just glowingly said that Schuff is the definite leader of this ball club, has played every day hard, and has played a very solid center field after taking the ball off his noggin early in the year, I think in San Francisco. Or maybe it was Miami. I think he said it was Miami. But moving over from right field. And this is one of those guys that much maligned during his career. A lot of negative things said about him, and I have never seen him be anything but affable, outgoing, and every game I've ever watched him play, he plays hard.
Incredible bat speed as that misses, and it's even at a ball and a strike. Now Mark Clark roughed up for 4 home runs and 11-3 loss his last start. His 11th of the season. This is his 12th. 64 1/3. Numbers you don't like to see. 82 hits.
Yeah, and those walks, I mean, that's putting 120 runners out there, 15 home runs he's given up. Doesn't really have a good move to first base, but you don't have to really worry about it when Pudge is back there.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because opponents have been able to steal only 9 bases on the Rangers this year, and they've been caught 23 times. Snap throw. And Rodriguez will say that it's not just my arm, it's his footwork, the way he bounces around behind the plate.
Yeah, last week at Baseball Tonight, I did a little comparison with Pudge and Johnny Bench and looked at some tape and finally put together a little split screen, and it was amazing. People have talked about Pudge having a better arm, quicker feet, and there was less than 100th of a second difference.
That much?
That much.
2-1. Off the end of the bat, fouled away by Sheffield. It's even at 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Actually, 1/10 of a second on the one play that we showed, and we just took them at random. We didn't try to find their most quick release. But needless to say, if you compare it to Johnny Bench, and if some people say he throws better, which I seriously doubt, because I've been on the receiving end of a lot of those throws, it's tough to be better than the best.
7 consecutive gold gloves for Pudge Rodriguez. So that is way outside, and a full count.
Well, that's what happens with Mark Clark. He's a sinker baller, slider, curveball, actually has 5 pitches. But sometimes he gets a little leery of the strike zone. And when he signed with Cleveland, he threw the ball about 93, 94 mile an hour with great sink, not unlike Kevin Brown. But now he's around 88, 89, and he gets a little plate shy when he gets behind hitters, and he tries to trick you with an off-speed pitch, 3-2.
Vizcaino on the move. This is driven into the gap. Sliding over and making a one-handed grab. Tom Goodwin as he slides down on one knee. So good coverage out in the center by Goodwin. the former Dodger, and that's out number 2. Well hit ball once again, though, for Gary Sheffield. And defensively, Rafael Palmeiro getting the start for the 3rd consecutive time at first base. He's been battling the knee problems, had a couple of surgeries right before the start of the season. McLemore, Clayton, Zeal around the outfield, Greer, Goodwin, and Gonzalez with Rodriguez behind the plate. But Palmeiro was worried that he wasn't going to get the opportunity to play because Lee Stevens has hit so well.
Lee Stevens has been something that has made this ball club such a volatile offensive club because of the depth of the offense. Getting a left-handed bat, sometimes hitting 8 that can hit 25, 30 home runs, and allowing Johnny Oates to stretch that lineup out. And when you have a left-hander leading off, left-hander hitting second, or a switch hitter but better left-handed, and a left-hander hitting third, and you start right, left, right, and with Stevens, you throw him in there in Zeal's spot. When you get to that 4th spot in the lineup, you make it very tough on opposition managers' managerial skills because they always have a right-hander, left-hander hitter in the hole.
Mondesi going after one that could have been out of the strike zone. Hard to believe we saw Mondesi take a pitch on a first offering. It's even at a ball and a strike. Mondesi comes in with 19 home runs at his 2nd best in the National League. He's 6th in runs batted in with 48 so far this season. And what is that old line? He's tougher to walk than a St. Bernard. 281 compared to 302.
Well, those people down in the Dominican and most of the Hispanic players that I played with, they were taught to swing the bat. And I tell you, they do. They go up there and they look for a pitch that just looks good to them, and they're hacking.
Long ball threat. In on his hands. Ball and 2 strikes. Great placement by Mark Clark.
I remember when I first broke in, you saw so many swings like this from young players from the Dominican. You throw them a fastball, or even Puerto Rico, they hammered it. It was almost like they had never seen a curveball. And you would see swing after swing. I remember Arturo De Freitas, who played with me, and I played with him in the minor leagues and eventually got up in the big leagues. But these guys, Cepeda, Rico Cardi, those guys, they swung the bat.
1-2 count to Mondesi for the shortstop. And Royce Clayton with a soft toss to McLemore for the final out of the inning on the force play off the bat of Mondesi. So nothing doing offensively, but look who's coming to the plate. The power players for the Texas Rangers. Welcome back to Dodger Stadium. Joel Meyers along with Ray Knight. We're in the top of the 2nd inning as the Rangers get ready to face Kevin Brown, who needed only 5 pitches in his first look at them. Goodwin, McLemore, and Greer going down in rapid fire fashion, span of about 60 seconds or less. But the 98, last year's American League MVP, could start it with a 320 average, 2nd best in the American League, with 52 runs driven in.
That's real surprising.
16 home runs, 4th best, and the breaking ball low and away for ball 1. So Gonzalez, Palmeiro, and Pudge Rodriguez coming up, and we were talking about it before tonight's game. To look at their offensive stats and what they have done. 285 as a team, and their on-base percentage close to 360 as a group.
Well, there's definitely a talent in driving in runs. There's an attitude, there's a calmness. There are some hitters that will be 0 for 3 with 2 pop-ups and a strikeout, and you put them in a clutch situation, they bear down and hit a rocket. Gonzalez and Palmeiro and Rodriguez are 3 guys, and Todd Zeal has gotten that way. That when you get runners out there in front of them, they produce.
And he's only 1 RBI away from reaching 1,000, and he would do it before career game number 1,200, becoming only the 7th in Major League history to do that. The quickest ever do it, Hank Greenberg, as that bends inside. 3 balls and a strike from Brown. So you saw the way Brown dealt with the first 3 in the batting order. Little difference with Juan Gonzalez starting the 2nd. Just a little more cautious.
And I think, too, Juan Gonzalez maturing.
Off the end of the bat, and it sounded like it was a broken bat, but out of the reach of Vizcaino for a leadoff single. Ray, you were talking about the emotional part of the game. Now, he was thrown out for the first time in his career last night. He had been punched out twice by the home plate umpire, Wally Bell, but a lot of people say that is the difference anyway with him, the way he's matured.
No question about it. And just because you get tossed out doesn't mean you're immature. I think that when you start getting tossed out of ball games, you believe in yourself. You believe in the strike zone. You trust the strike zone, what your strike zone is, and it's been established. And that's what I feel about Juan. You get to 3-1, and the reason he gets to 3-1, he's become more patient. And he used to be just a free-wheeling guy that swung at anything you threw up there, and he'd hit home runs just because of that aggressiveness. But with a guy like Kevin Brown, who features every pitch that he throws has a different type movement. The sinker goes down and away from a left-hander. He can cut that fastball in on your hands. His slider darts down in at your shoe tops, and his changeup, sometimes when he gets inside it, it's like a screwball.
Short lead by Gonzalez. Palmeiro missing the first two. 0-2 count. What a start for Rafael Palmeiro. We saw what he had done average-wise at 364, third best in the American League, but across the board, third in home runs, third in runs batted in, and he's tops in the American League in slugging percentage, also fourth best in on-base percentage. Protecting it. It's high, and it's 1-2.
Well, we always talk about underrated players and underrated hitters and guys that don't get their due. We always talk about the Gonzaleses and the Griffeys and the McGuires. But when you look at this man's stats and see how productive he's been over his career, he is truly in the upper echelon of great hitters.
Goes down swinging that time. Second strikeout for Kevin Brown, but you're right about what he's done. 43 home runs last year and 121 runs driven in his final year as an Oriole while hitting .296. Another look.
Good little sinker away, probably about 88, 89 sinker with late movement. Rafi out in front of all three of those pitches. It looked as if they were changeups, but according to our gun, 88, 89, 90 miles an hour, which is just a fastball that he takes a little bit off of, sinks it away, and Rafi's so geared for the juice inside because Kevin Brown will throw you inside, and he sets very tough to set on a particular pitch with Kevin Brown. He's the type of guy that will start off pitching you away with sinkers, and then in the second at bat bust you inside with running fastballs. Third at bat go to off-speed stuff, finish you off with breaking balls late in the game. And he does something that Tom Seaver told me one time as well as anybody in either league. He does not show his out pitch until it's a critical situation to hitters. He doesn't care about the strikeouts. What I'm saying is if his best pitch on a particular day is a slider, he will not throw that pitch to a hitter until it's a crucial situation. He's not going to just show it to him 0-0. He's going to wait and get him 2-2, show it to him for the first time, and get him out.
Just reached 34 years old, signing that 7-year deal with Los Angeles as that's pulled foul, and it's 1-2 to Pudge Rodriguez. And it's interesting that 34, many felt that the Dodgers, even spending better than $100 million over 7 years for Kevin Brown, got the best pitcher in baseball right now and for years to come because of the mentality and the way he has grown.
Well, there's no doubt. That's a whole lot of money, and I never thought that I would see it. But with the revenue money now with TV and these owners coming in and big conglomerates buying ball clubs,
that's pushed foul.
Kevin Brown, not only does he intimidate you with velocity, slider, and changeup, watch how he drops down. This is the pitch just prior. He drops down, changes the arm angle, and that ball just runs absolutely sideways. That's not a sinker. That ball just runs sideways. Starts out over the inner part of the plate. Excuse me, inner part of the plate, and runs about 8 or 10 inches right in on your hands.
Well, who was it who said when he throws the ball at you and you're up in the box, it's like somebody's throwing a chainsaw in your direction?
You're not kidding.
1-2 count with Brown out there, and his ERA since the start of the '96 season, the best in Major League Baseball, 2.37. He comes in tonight at 2.73, 6-3 mark. With some support, his record could be better, but he has been victimized, and we'll get to that in just a moment, by something that has not bothered him lately. That has bounced up the middle. Can they turn to it? Rodriguez running? Yes. Vizcaino takes care of it himself. So Kevin Brown, only blemish on his record, that leadoff single by Gonzalez. He erased on the double play.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Charbroil. See leading retailers for beautiful grills, beautifully built by Charbroil. And by Original Coors. There's only one mile-high taste. Coors, the original.
Couple of teams in the Western Division matching up. Different Western divisions. And welcome back to Southern California. Joel Meyers along with Ray Knight, the Texas Rangers. The leaders in the American League West taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers, currently sitting in third in the National League West. The Dodgers are 5 back. The Rangers are 5 up on the Seattle Mariners. And the Seattle Mariners, by the way, we might get back to that game in just a few minutes. A rain delay for the Mariners at Coors Field in Denver as Eric Karros leads it off. They're in the bottom of the 7th inning in a pitcher's duel. An 11-10 lead for Colorado over Seattle. Starters, they lasted a long time. No score here in the bottom of the 2nd. Eric Karros watching the breaking ball from Mark Clark, even at a ball and a strike, and many feel that this is one of the most underrated Los Angeles Dodgers. The first Dodgers since they moved to Los Angeles in '58 to hit 30+ home runs and drive in better than 100 years or 100 RBIs in 3 consecutive seasons. That was 95, 96, and 97. Every year he was supposed to be traded.
He's a tough out. You know, I don't know what they look for. You see a guy that can hit 25 home runs. He doesn't run well. He's just an average first baseman, but I'll tell you one thing, he knows how to drive in a run, and you get him in that 5 and 6 hole, and tonight he's hitting 6th. Well, that's a pretty strong lineup when you get Eric Karros down there, a guy that, as you mentioned, has 34 home runs and driven in over 100 runs in his career, hitting 6th.
His whole career, though, the way he went to UCLA as a walk-on is the 3-2. Got him to go after 1 out of the strike zone. And that is the first strike out of the evening from Mark Clark, but his whole career a walk-on at UCLA, all Pac-10 selection. Phenomenal player there, and then the 8th round pick for the Dodgers.
Well, this is just when you throw all fastballs and then you throw a slider. He threw nothing but fastballs to Karros, and then he throws him a slider first time he's seen it, and it makes you look pretty silly. The next time Mark Clark throws him that slider, he'll recognize the spin on it and lay off of it.
Dave Hansen going after the first one with a towering fly ball to medium left field for Rusty Brewer. 6 pitches and 2 down here in this inning for Mark Clark. Clark grew up a St. Louis Cardinal fan. Big guy at 6'5".
Number 47,
Illinois.
center fielder.
Used to go to about 15 to 20 Cardinal games every summer. Had an opportunity in the Cardinals organization. Was dealt away. And his best back-to-back seasons actually came over in the American League with the Cleveland Indians. He had a nice run in those 2 seasons and then went back to the National League with the Cubs for the last 3 years. Is Trinidad Hubbard filling in for Devon White, hitting .292. He had 3 hits last night. Files it away for strike 1. And a phenomenal catch as well for Trinidad Hubbard as we look back on that extra inning affair, going parallel to the ground to get that one.
That is a tremendous catch. I'm just going to make a comment on him bunting there with 2 outs, 7th place. I hate that play. I mean,
how do you really feel, though?
Well, and I'll tell you why. I mean, you end up bunting there, and unless you're definitely going to steal second base, you get your 8-hole hitter up, and most of the time you have your pitcher leading off. Hit a double, make them have to make a choice to pitch to the 8-hole hitter. And if they decide to put him on, your pitcher goes up, and now you restart your lineup. So when you're hitting 7th, unless you can steal 30 or 40 bases, you need to think hitting double with 2 outs.
Otherwise, your pitcher is going to lead off, as you mentioned.
General, I mean,
the next inning.
A large percentage of the time it's going to happen.
The 1-2. Man goes after a pitch out of the zone, just like Eric Karros. So a couple of strikeouts in the inning. The first 2 of the evening for Mark Clark, looking for his 3rd good start over his last 4 outings, and he's on his way through 2.
If you were wondering about the Mariners and Rockies, nothing has changed. Still in a rain delay. We'll keep you posted.
All right. right, Larry, and welcome back to Dodger Stadium. We move to the top of the third inning. Bottom third, the batting order coming up for the Texas Rangers with no score thus far. Right-handers Kevin Brown and Mark Clark going in this final game of the 3-game series. Brown gave up a single to Gonzalez. He was taken care of on a 6-3 double play off the bat of Pudge Rodriguez, and former Dodger, Cardinal, as well as Florida Marlin for a short period of time. Todd Zeile starts it off, going after the fastball for strike one. Zeile last year, after that deal with the Marlins, the Dodgers, with Sheffield coming over to the Dodgers, and the principal's Piazza going with Zeile to Florida, and then all of a sudden Piazza going to New York. Zeile had to say, hey, what about me? You're not going to leave me here, are you? Strike one count. Lays off the high hard one, even at a ball and a strike, and you know, his persistence paid off. He was dealt late in the season to the Texas Rangers, just a first place club. Two balls and a strike. One blemish that you could look at on Kevin Brown's record: home runs allowed so far this season, a 6-3 mark. As he blows that fastball right by Todd Zeile. He gave up 8 all of last year. He's already given up 9 so far this season. 2-2 to Zeile.
Well, I have, and you and I have talked a little bit before the game, but I have a theory about that. Kevin Brown can throw 95, 96. He also has a four-seam fastball, as he's exhibited right here to Todd Zeile, that he throws up around letter high. There it is again. He's only throwing 91 tonight. But what happens if you get to liking that, and when you tend to be over-pumped, and you've signed a $105 million contract, then he's out to prove something, and then you overthrow. And you're overthrowing with that four-seamer as opposed to throwing your natural sinker. And that four-seamer with no movement is something that, especially when guys go up there cheating a little bit to get their bat started, and subsequently balls up, go out of the ballpark, and overthrowing tends to make balls be up.
Royce Clayton bats after the leadoff walk to Zeile. Bouncing it for Vizcaino. Clayton, good move. Eric Young won't even try. And a force out on Zeile at second for the first out here in the top of the third.
Pitcher.
Well, don't forget to join John Miller and Joe Morgan. ESPN's exclusive coverage of Sunday Night Baseball. The game of the week presented by Gum Out comes your way with the Atlanta Braves playing host to the Baltimore Orioles. Cal Ripken Jr. and the O's on the road, taking on the team with the second best record in the majors, the Atlanta Braves. That's Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here on ESPN. ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, Go.com. One down to the pitcher coming up, who has spent time in the National League, Mark Clark. Can he lay down the bunt? He's 0 for 1 on the season.
This is a very difficult pitcher to bunt. He won't be throwing any four-seam fastballs here. He's going to throw that hard sinker down and in. If you bunt it, you've got to get the bat barrel way out front. The only way you really bunt him is move way forward in the batter's box and change your angle. I remember Mark Clark in the National League being a pretty fair bunter, but Kevin Brown is a tough assignment. Check this delivery out. I mean, he's coming from down there, Kent to Colby like. What is going on? And then Spider-Man after the delivery.
0-2 to his counterpart after that look where he dropped down. No movement on that pitch at all. Bearing in just a bit on Mark Clark. The third strikeout of the evening for Kevin Brown.
This is not fair. This isn't fair. Look at that. That ball starts at the catcher's mask. It ends up at his left kneecap, moving sideways, and he's not even close to that thing. You know, you're supposed to try to catch the ball with the bat barrel just like you catch a ball in your glove, but I don't know if you could well, the catcher catches it. I don't think I could catch it anymore, Joel. That thing moves sideways and down. What?
Angel Pena looking into the dugout for help as we were mentioning that pitch. Tom Goodwin, his first look and his first at bat against Kevin Brown to start the night lasted about 16.5 seconds.
Yeah, we mentioned how Kevin changes his patterns. I guess this is his sidearm inning. He's throwing everything from down there, even the left-handers.
He's not going to let them get comfortable.
There's a lot of theories out there, and a lot of scouts will tell you they do not like a right-hander throwing sidearm to a left-hander, or a left-hander throwing sidearm to right-handers. And the reason for that is that ball comes at an angle out away from you so far that you see the ball more clearly. A little different story when they drop down from the same side. It looks like it's coming from behind you. You have to bail and wail.
Like the terminology. The 2-0. Catches the outside edge. The off-speed delivery. 2 balls and a strike. Royce Clayton over at first. 2 down. Clayton perfect in the stolen base department so far this season. Angel Payton behind the plate once again after they victimized Todd Hundley last night for 6 steals. After one upstairs, popped right behind the plate, and Pena has the play for the final out of the inning. So an uneventful third for the Rangers against their former teammate Kevin Brown. No score so far in the final game of a 3-game set between the Dodgers and the Texas Rangers. Welcome back to Dodger Stadium. Joel Meyers along with Ray Knight. Absolutely magnificent night in Southern California. For this final matchup between these two teams, interleague play will continue for the Texas Rangers back at home over the weekend. They're going to be taking on the Colorado Rockies. Fortunately, they get them at home and not at Coors Field. Bottom of the order coming up for the Dodgers. Angel Pena in the 8th slot. His first matchup with Mark Clark, backing up from ball 1. 226 so far in limited duty. The Dodgers very thin at the catcher position. Hard to believe. Thought Mike Piazza would be in their uniform forever. As it turns out, Todd Hundley with an injured wrist. And then trying to come back last night. They really capitalized. Running at will on Hundley. Ball and 2 strikes to Pena. The furthest along in the Dodgers system at the catching spot, Paul LaDuca, a 26-year-old, is banged up right now. He's on the DL for their AAA affiliate in Albuquerque. And the off-speed stuff from Clark over matching Pena. His 3rd strikeout.
Mark Clark, right here, this is a changeup, a straight changeup, and look at the downward movement. Just straight down, starts about waist high, little, maybe thigh high, and ends up on the ground. He also has a split finger, and that looked a little bit more like split finger movement, but it looked like he dug his hand into his glove deep, almost a palm ball type grip.
Bounce foul by Kevin Brown for strike 1. I was waiting to see if Clark was going to come into the kitchen of Kevin Brown after the way he was dropping down and throwing those pitches over the inside portion of the plate when he was trying to bunt in Clark's at bat.
A little different deal. It's like somebody throwing a BB at you, then throwing about a 50-pound lead ball at you.
Clark just signing a 2-year deal after coming over from the Cubs last year. 9-14 mark last year, 4.84. High and wide, it's even at a ball and 2 strikes. The one thing they say about Clark, though, is he wants it. He's a guy who'll throw 200+ innings. He'll go out every 5th day for you. Keep you in most games. Gets Kevin Brown there, back-to-back strikeouts. In fact, that's 3 strikeouts in a row for Mark Clark, 4 overall in the game. So there's 2 down as he gets ready to face Eric Young, and Eric Young almost had his 2nd home run in as many nights.
Well, he did. What happened? Mark Clark started him off with a breaking ball and just hung right there, right down the middle of the plate. And he hits his ball as far as you can and not get a home run out of it. Rusty Greer went back, and as you said, that ball disappeared behind that fence, but it disappeared in the glove of Rusty Greer.
So EY, Eric Young, robbed by Greer. Not known for his power, more his speed, because he's up there 3rd best in the National League in the stolen base department. He tied it up with 2 down. The home run, his 2nd of the season. Evened it up. At 6 apiece for the Dodgers off John Wetland. And Wetland has been unreal this year. So he got to Wetland with 2 down. Clark on the roll with a 1-1 count. He struck out 4 of the last 5. 3 consecutive. Behind, though, to Eric Young, 2 balls and a strike.
Eli put 2 great years together in Colorado.
And the Dodgers realized they made a mistake because they traded Pedro Estacio to get him back because he was originally a Dodger farmhand.
Right. I mean, he hit 269, 272, 317, then 324. His average went up every year in Colorado. Played a heck of a defense there. You know, everybody talks about how poor he is defensively, but when I saw him play, he exhibited tremendous range. Davey was talking about him tonight, saying he had great range, but he has a tough time turning the double play. And he's got real small, itty-bitty hands. That's Davey's. That was a quote from Davey. Joe Morgan had little hands. That didn't stop him from catching the ball.
You know, the one number that stands out, he came out as a shortstop out of Rutgers when he was drafted originally by the Dodgers. Not a high draft choice, but has he ever panned out? He always gets on base. Every year for the last 6 years, he's had more walks than strikeouts.
That's impressive. That's impressive. And anytime you're hitting around 300 and you do that.
Off of Palmeiro, backed up nicely by McLemore, and Clark didn't quit on the play either. Good play all the way around on the tough short hop. Palmeiro is bailed out by McLemore. So Kevin Brown back to the hill, getting ready to see Juan Gonzalez for the 2nd time this evening. You're never surprised when Kevin Brown rolls into the 4th inning, holding the opposition scoreless, but the Texas Rangers, and we talked about it at the very top of the telecast, Ray Knight, have been getting solid starting pitching, and they're getting it once again for the 3rd time over the last 4 games from right-hander Mark Clark. We move to the 4th inning in Los Angeles, and Kevin Brown set to match up with the heart of the batting order, the 2, 3, and 4 hitters, and then if anybody gets aboard, it'll be the number 5 hitter, Rafael Palmeiro. Mark McLemore leading it off. Started his career in Southern California with the Anaheim Angels. They decided that they weren't going to wait for Mark to develop and brought in Johnny Ray. You might remember right at the end of Johnny Ray's career.
I remember that. I do. I was in the league.
And Mark McLemore really became motivated because he was simply released, believe it or not, by the Anaheim Angels. And has he ever put together a solid career with Baltimore and then came over to Texas as a free agent. Great looking breaking ball. 1-2 from Brown.
Well, there's a saying that goes around in baseball, and you've heard it many times, Joel. Coaches and managers will say simply, he's a ball player. And what that means is he knows how to play the game. He understands the game. He knows how to bunt, hit, and run. And he does the little things that mean so much to a team. Johnny Oates talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said McLemore never gets any acclaim on this ball club, but he's a guy that is like glue. He catches everything he gets to. He turns the double play. He gets on base. If he's hitting second, the runner's on second base, he gets him over. Managers really appreciate that type of talent. It doesn't really show up necessarily in the stats, but it shows up in the win column.
And don't forget, when Juan Gonzalez was out for almost a half a season, the guy that went out to right field and subbed and did a great job as an outfielder, Mark McLemore. Full count now as he has battled Kevin Brown. Brown did walk the leadoff man in the 3rd. And McLemore, another guy that sticks around. He walked more than he struck out last year. The same can be said for 96. 87 walks, 69 Ks, 89 walks last year compared to 64 strikeouts. It'll be walk number 2 for Brown. No, fly ball off the end of the bat. Push Gary Sheffield back. And that is the first out here in the 4th. So there's one down in the top of the 4th inning. No score thus far. And it brings up the left fielder, Rusty Greer. You know, Ray, you were talking between innings about a theory that Tom Seaver has regarding pitchers and end-of-the-year totals. Is Greer 0 for 1. Hit it hard, but right at the center fielder Hubbard his first time up there. And he watches ball 1. And it's almost like an interesting plus-minus ratio that Tom Seaver has.
It really is. Tom always talked about, to the young pitchers, Tom Hume, Frank Pastore, Moscow, when we were there in Cincinnati.
Ground ball for the second baseman, Eric Young. 4-3 on the putout. We'll get back to that thought in just a moment, but let's head back to the studio and check in once again with Larry Beal. Larry?
Hey, Joel. The West leading Diamondbacks against the Cubs. Here it comes. There it goes. Matt Williams takes Terry Mulholland downtown for his 17th of the season. You know, Williams, he's completely shaved his head and got himself a tattoo. His team has a 4-1 lead.
Trying Trying to go 10 games over the 500 mark, raise their record to 35-25. Started the day with a 1-game lead up the Giants. The Giants already lost today, 2-1 earlier today to the Anaheim Angels. As it's wide to Juan Gonzalez, but back to the Seaver theory, as Gonzalez did have a base hit his first time up.
Real simple theory. You combine your hits allowed and walks and subtract that from your innings pitched. And if you have fewer walks and hits than innings pitched, then you're a dominant pitcher, because that shows you have stuff and you're not afraid to go at people. In 1996, Kevin Brown, 233 innings pitched, a total of 220 hits and walks, so he was plus 13. To give you an example, Rick Helling last year won 20 games, 209 innings pitched, 209 hits, 78 walks, 287 total base runners, 71 over. Seeley, 111 base runners over. He threw 239 innings, gave up, actually 212 innings, gave up 323 base runners as you look at Mike Morgan. So what I'm saying is, although those guys won 20 and 19 games, they don't have overpowering stuff. And you can look at those things, because if guys are afraid to throw the ball around the plate, they're going to create a lot of runs, therefore a lot of run opportunities, so your earned run average is going to be up because there's so many guys on the bases.
Kevin Brown just gave up his second walk of the night. Palmeiro watches a nasty off-speed delivery over the outside edge. Palmeiro went down swinging on a 1-2 pitch in the dirt.
Well, he threw him that same sinker from a 3/4 delivery, and then there he drops down again. So he seems to like, and he's done more and more of this the last couple of years. That year in '96, I was managing the Reds, and we just could not do anything with him. I'm talking, if we got 3 hits a game, that was a major rally.
Nobody else could either, as Palmeiro drills it into the gap. Gonzalez on his way around second as Hubbard gets to it. Bobbles it, though. Gonzalez would have made it to third anyway. He'll stop there. And it's runners at the corners with 2 down. So he worked very carefully, Kevin Brown did, to Juan Gonzalez. Didn't want to give him anything to hit. And Palmeiro with an 0-2 pitch.
Well, I said before that he would be back and he would be right on that pitch. And what he did, he just threw him too many sinkers away. And then he throws him one that's not quite the quality. By that I mean the ball does not move quite as much, or doesn't have as late a sink. And he makes a mistake and he hammers the ball out there to left field.
Bud Rodriguez just had a 20-game hitting streak snapped on Friday in their loss to Randy Johnson of the Diamondbacks. Looks at ball 1. So the RBI opportunity there for Rodriguez. And the Rangers to take the lead. It seems like they've never trailed in this series. It was a nip-and-tuck game last night, the opener. An early 3-0 lead and a 3-2 win for Texas. Stays upstairs, 2-0.
This situation here, the Dodgers have their middle infield on the grass. You know that Palmeiro is having trouble running, so look how deep the middle infield is playing, knowing that they can dive, knock the ball down, and still get Palmeiro at second base.
First and third, 2 down. Popped up on the infield. Eric Karros camps under it, the first baseman, in foul territory. Kevin Brown escapes from a first and third jam after the base hit by Palmeiro, and that walk to Gonzalez. Still no score after 3.5.
Theo updating the Cards and Royals in the 8th. Bases loaded for Ray Lankford, and he delivers. Thomas Howard scores. So does Edgar Renteria. It's now 9-9 in the 8th. Quite a contrast with what we got in L.A., guys.
All right, Larry. Well, the Cardinals trying to keep pace with the Astros, and the Astros, well, they were stymied by the White Sox. His first ball swinging. Jose Vizcaino hits it hard, but right at the center fielder, Tom Goodwin. So 1 pitch and 1 down for Mark Clark, who continues to cruise right along. He's only given up 1 base hit, and that was to the second batter of the game, the young man we just saw, Vizcaino. So he's set down now. Mark Clark is set down 9 straight. He gets ready to face Gary Sheffield and Raul Mondesi. The Dodgers have not been able to hit in the clutch all year long. Gary Sheffield, one of the few bright spots. He's 4th in the National League with 22 multi-hit games. Comes in overall at 308. But Ray, dismal numbers for this team. Whenever it seems like whenever there are men in scoring position and less than 2 away. Sheffield calls time.
It certainly has been that way this year. When you talk about the last 60 games under 100 with runners in scoring position, with Sheffield twice in his career driving in over 100 runs. Mondesi yet to drive in 100 on the pace to do so this year. But what I see in that situation are guys that are streak hitters. You know, Sheffield has always been very consistent, but Karras is definitely a streak hitter.
Up the middle and right past the pitcher is Gary Sheffield. Has the 2nd hit of the night for the Dodgers.
And they drive runs in bunches. You know, Mondesi is a streak hitter. He drives runs in bunches. So they're liable to drive in 10, 12 runs in a week and then go a period like we talked about, the last 60 at bats with runners in scoring position and not do anything. That's why you like the Keith Hernandez type, Paul O'Neill type hitters in the middle of your lineup, that they're going to make contact. They're not going to strike out. They're going to give you a good at bat. And that's one thing that I see that the Dodgers lack, other than Sheffield, is that guy that really battles you and is a tough out day in and day out.
Mondesi looking at strike 1 right at the knees. Mondesi included in that group that has not been able to come through with men in scoring position, just like Eric Karras. Home games, huge difference in numbers. 324 with 14 home runs, 14 of his 19. He looks for his first hit of the night. Moves inside, even at a ball and a strike. But he has yet to reach. They talk about 5-tool players. Simply 100 runs batted in one season. He had 30 home runs in each of the last 2 seasons, but knocked in 90, and also knocked in 87 the year before. And that comes from not hitting in those pressure clutch situations.
Absolutely. You hit 30 home runs. It's hard not to drive in 100 runs. I mean, it's just hard not to do. I mean, that's 30 runs by itself right there, 30 RBIs. And if you hit home runs, you know, just with one man on half the time, you're talking about another 30. So that's 60 home runs produced. I mean, 60 runs just by home runs. So I used to drive them in one at a time, but I'd drive in 75 to 80 runs, and I'd hit, you know, 10, 12 home runs, and then that's a tough way to do it. And that's like Mark Grace and Keith Hernandez and those guys. They drive in 90 runs with 11 or 12 home runs. That's a lot of runs one at a time. Big 2-out base hits.
So 1-2 count with Sheffield at first. And there Mondesi, instead of going with the pitch, trying to push it to right field, the breaking ball about a foot outside, he tried to pull it, and it stays at a ball and 2 strikes. So it's also the approach. You know, we talk about the approach going up there. If you're in a hole, taking what he's going to give you. Davey Johnson, pretty decent hitting second baseman.
Yeah, he was. And Davey was a type hitter that would not ever, I mean, relentless competitor, never give in to you. And then finally, you know, after all those years of inside outing the ball in Baltimore and being a 270 hitter, he finally lets go and goes to Atlanta, hits 43 home runs and still holds that record for most home runs by a second baseman. But he was of that school. He didn't want to strike out. He wanted to battle, and he was as tough a 2-out hitter, a 2-strike hitter as anybody in the game. I played against him in '78 when he was pinch hitting in Philly, and you just did not want to see him come up there and runners in scoring position. And that's what made the Yankees team so tough last year.
2-2 with the runner on the move. And it stays. Even as Davey Johnson trying to manufacture something, just trying to get aggressive here. And I talked to him right before you came downstairs, and you spent a long time with him as well. He's one patient manager right now, because you know he's frustrated.
Well, he told me that he's just grown into the job, and he said, you know, I'm just taking it cool. And then he smiled and gave me that smile. But he's such a good man, and he knows people, and he's just a straight shooting. He always calls himself a Florida cracker, born in Texas, but he just tells you the truth. And he is hard-headed, as a lot of us are, but he just tells you the way it is. And I tell you, if you're just leaving him alone, he's gonna do the right thing. He's a great judge of talent. He knows pitching. He handles players extremely well. Some people think too lax, but when I played for him in New York, I grew to love him and respect him. And if I were ever a general manager, he would be the first person that I'd call to manage my ball club.
This team's 5 back, still a game out of the 500 mark, so pretty good shape when you're under the break-even point, and only 5 out of first place behind the Diamondbacks. And it all comes, as you heard, Ray Knight won a World Series as a player for Davey Johnson in '86 with the Mets, and went to the National League Championship Series coaching for him with the Reds. As ball 4 is the breaking ball to Mondesi, and now runners at first and second for the Dodgers. So the Dodgers only had 1 hit over the first 3. 9 had been set down in a row by Mark Clark after the leadoff liner by Vizcaino, and a single by Sheffield was followed by a walk to Mondesi.
Well, this is typical of what you see with Texas Ranger pitching, and that's why their earned run average for starters is so high, because of the fact that once they go through the lineup one time, they don't have overpowering stuff to go somewhere else. They show all their stuff in the first inning or 2 trying to get people out, and then they get themselves in trouble by picking and trying to be too fine, and they're always behind hitters. And it's not a philosophy. Johnny Oates wants you to go right at him, throw strikes. It's just a matter of the type of pitching staff they have is get us to the 5th inning and let's turn it over to bullpen.
Decent spin on the bases, great over at first, and Mondesi, as Carroll sends it deep, left center field, away back, and it's gone. The situation we were just talking about, Eric Karros, one of the worst in the National League at .238, hitting with men in scoring position, finally gets it done for the Dodgers. A 3-run shot.
Well, it's hard not to hit this one out of the ballpark. Watch where it is. There it is down the middle. Now, the reason I say that is because Eric Karros is a dead low ball hitter, a lot like left-handed batters. He is one guy that loves the ball down, and that's right. If you look at his hot chart, that's right where he likes it.
Dave Hansen watches the first one downstairs for ball 1. So home run number 8 on the season, as Karros has driven in 29 with that 3-run shot.
And that's why you have to know your hitters, because every pitching coach in the world will say, Joel, keep the ball down. Well, hey, you didn't keep it down to Willie McCovey or Willie Stargell. Those guys, you could throw it under the plate and they could hit it. Sammy Sosa's the same way.
And, you know, it's interesting because Karros, you know, a lot of golfers on the left side of the plate where they love it down and in. Karros is one of those guys, he's oddity in baseball, down and in. He likes it anywhere down anyway.
He does. He does. I have seen him take that ball down and in around his shoelaces and hit rockets down the left field line, and not very many right-handers can do that, and left-handers do it all the time.
And let's not forget that Mark Clark has now given up 16 home runs this season. He gave up the 2nd most in the majors coming into the game, as he has walked his 2nd batter in the inning and his 2nd in the contest.
This ballpark has always been a very tough ballpark to hit home runs in, especially at night. But this year, as you see right there, balls are just flying out of here.
Number 47.
My goodness, I tell you what, you could hit balls out of here in batting practice, and it would seem no different than anywhere else.
Yeah, wow. They have a conversation out on the hill with pitching coach Dick Bosman. Let's head back to the studio and check in back east with Larry Beal. Larry?
All right, Joel. Devil Rays and Braves in the 12th. Bases loaded. Andrew Jones delivers off of Rick White. That score is Brian Jordan. Good night. Game over. Drive home safely. The Braves win 4-3 in 12.
All right, Larry. So the Braves roll along with the 2nd best record in the majors, picking up that 1-run victory on the homer tonight over Tampa Bay. And an opportunity for more for the Dodgers and Trinidad Hubbard, their center fielder, who catches the outside edge for strike 1, filling in for Devon White. Strained groin muscle for White. Davey Johnson has recently gone to a lineup where he's got Devon White over the last couple of weeks leading things off, and Eric Young batting 2nd. Well, EY has always been a leadoff man. Davey just trying to mix things up, trying to, as we talked about it, find a catalyst, especially up top. It's belted over to the right side. And down the line for a single for Hubbard. Hanson on his way around second without a play. Cruising into third. Runners at the corners once again for the Dodgers. But back to that thought with Devon White as the leadoff man, it hasn't worked out like they anticipated because White has struck out so often during his career. Not exactly a contact guy.
No, he's not. And it surprised me a little bit, but then when I think about Davey, they have not done offensively what he expected them to do. He thought that they would pitch and they would have an offensive club that was pretty dead gun solid and that they would not catch the ball defensively. He told me that. Beltre's coming along. Better defensively. Grudgelonic's has been hurt. Hundley's been out. They haven't hit like he thought they would. They haven't pitched anywhere like they thought that they would. So he tried to juggle something up in the top of the lineup just to kind of create something, and he'll do that. But I think Eli probably is your best choice at leading off, but I guarantee Davey will figure it out.
Angel Pena drops one in front of Tom Goodwin. That'll produce another run for the Dodgers as they take a 4-0 lead. Pena, who struck out back in the third, comes up with an RBI single in the fourth.
Well, another pitch that's up in the strike zone, hanging breaking ball. Just a hanging breaking ball right there, out over the plate, just begging it to be hit, and it was. And again, now you got a situation here, first and third in. Whether or not they're going to put the rotation play on where the shortstop breaks, the second baseman could pick off. If that happens, Brown will swing the bat.
Fouls off the bunt attempt.
Just straight bunt there. That's where the pitcher has the third base line. The third baseman stays home. First baseman charges hard. If the ball's bunted up the first base line, Palmeiro's got a chance to make the play at third. What a pitcher does in this situation, bunt the ball to the third baseman and make him field the ball. There's basically three plays here. You have the shortstop over on rotation. You have the third baseman charging there. You have a straight play where the first baseman charges and the pitcher covers third. Then you have the pickoff play where the shortstop vacates. The second baseman sneaks in behind him.
What will it be for Clark and the Rangers? 3 successful sacrifices for Brown so far this year. A beauty for the third baseman Zeal. Only one play. And a couple of runners in scoring position now with 2 down for the Dodgers. Well executed. Good pitch to bunt as well. Right over the heart of the plate. And the rotation you were talking about, right?
Well, here it is. You see the first baseman will start the charge. The pitcher will have third base responsibility. He can't get there. Once the third baseman sees the ball by the pitcher, he vacates the bag and gets the sure out.
So Mark Clark set to face the 9th man to bat in the inning for the Dodgers. They've already played it 4. Opportunity for more. Man, Eric Young moving around. He takes it wide for ball 1.
Well, that right there is a big indicator of what I'm talking about. Not just from Mark Clark, but most of the Texas rotation. First time around the batting order, you get them out. Then after the hitters see you one time, as you see John Burkett, who has started 6 games for the Rangers this year. And once you get around the lineup one time, then those hitters get a little zeroed in on what you have.
Off the end of the bat of Eric Young. He is now in a 1-2 hole. And you talked about it as well at the very top of the telecast. The Rangers just barely averaging their starters a little over 5+ innings per starter. They could get it up at 6, so it's 6 1/3, 6 2/3. Their bullpen as good as you'll find in baseball so far this season. Just getting to the 6th inning has been the problem, though. 1-2 count to Eric Young. He's driven in 20 this year. Pulls it over to the left side. Off the glove and seal into left field. That'll bring home a couple of more. Trinidad Hubbard crosses the plate. So is Angel Pena. And it's out of control in Los Angeles. 6-0 Dodgers. But Todd Zeile has had some errors so far this season, 3 on this road trip of the first 5 games, but they're going to give that credit. That is a base hit.
First of all, he's not playing deep enough. You have 2 outs, and he's not playing deep enough. In that situation, you know, they're not going to bunt. You've got a 4-run lead, and you see him there. He's basically in what I call the 3 position, which is just regular third base position, where you play against a guy that basically runs well as Young does. But where I play in that situation, 2 or 3 feet deeper, and then you dive and knock that ball down.
Jose Vizcaino, first ball swinging. Clark will take care of it. Well, they got the leadoff man in the 4th. Vizcaino. He got him to ground out for the final out of the inning. But plenty in between, and Eric Garros with the big run. The Dodgers finally came through the hits with many scoring positions. A 6th spot on the board for the Dodgers in their half of the 4th inning. And welcome back as we continue. Second half of our ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader at Dodger Stadium. Mark Clark roughed up on Friday night, giving up 8 runs, allowing 4 home runs against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he was cruising along. He had set down 9 in a row after he retired the leadoff man Vizcaino to start the 4th, but then it fell apart, and it fell apart with the single by Sheffield. Then he hurt himself with a walk as well before Karros came up and hit the bomb. So the bottom 3 in the order coming up for Texas. And how would you like to have Brown out on the hill with a 6th spot on the board, a 6-0 lead, as that one is outside for ball 1.
Well, what's strange right here is you're down 6-0. I mean, this is the National League, and there's nobody in the bullpen throwing, and you have Clark, the 3rd hitter.
You're tough. Foul back. Well, you're a National Leaguer. It's a ball and a strike.
I mean,
this is just a shortstop. Although they've got to deal with the National League once again, but it's at their home ballpark on Friday night with the Colorado Rockies. But you bring up a valid point. Burkett must have told him he's ready.
Got to be ready.
Fly ball to center field, bending towards the gap for Trinidad Hubbard. And a couple of steps onto the track as a crowd number 1 of the 5th. So Kevin Brown looking for his 7th win of the year.
Number 11.
Leading 6-0 in the 5th inning.
Clayton.
Plenty of expressions you could talk about, the old money in the bank and some of the others. But it was a strange start this year for Kevin Brown. Let's face it, opening day, gave up a couple of home runs. Not the way the Dodgers expected Brown to start the season, but as you mentioned.
But, you know, I watched that game. He was blowing. That first 6 or 7 innings, he was nasty. And then I think that he just ran out of gas. And that was the Johnson game, wasn't it? Didn't Johnson?
Yes.
And
Randy Johnson for the Diamondbacks.
And they had a lead and
just buckled the knees there. Royce Clayton, and now comes up with a beautiful off-speed delivery. 0-2. Now the Dodger pitching staff as a group, 4.36 earned run average, which is 5th best in the National League. In on the hands, off the bat handle, Vizcaino charging, and Karros can't come up with it on the shortstop. So it's going to be an error. You would have to think on the shortstop on the throw. And don't forget, we honor the millennium with Sports Entry, the 50 greatest athletes. Friday night, 10:30 Eastern. We give you number 32, Johnny U. Johnny Unitas, 10-time Pro Bowl selection, threw for better than 40,000 yards. Holds an NFL record for a touchdown pass in 47 consecutive games. Number 32, Johnny Unitas. We celebrate his unbelievable career Friday at 10:30 Eastern on ESPN. Well, as for Ray Knight, you shall receive, because it's a former National Leaguer coming in as the pinch hitter, Luis Alicea. So the air hasn't been posted yet, and they're going to say it's a base hit. A tough play for Vizcaino in the hole.
It was a tough play because third baseman didn't get over there. That ball right there, they're playing up the middle anyway, and Hansen not playing a lot of third base. He just didn't get. He should have gone ahead and took charge and took that ball and cut it off, and it's a tough play for the shortstop.
Slashed out, fouled away by Alicea. 0-2. And with the way the Rangers have been playing, it's been tough for Alicea to simply find at bats. This is only his 68th. Much better hitter so far this season. 200 points better from the right side as opposed to the left side. They've got to set every day 8. They don't deviate from it very often unless they're at home. And then they can get Lee Stevens in at first base, and that Palmeiro is the DH. So Dave Hansen filling in for Adrian Beltre, the 21-year-old regular third baseman for the Dodgers. 1-2 to Alicea. Fly ball sending the center fielder Trinidad Hubbard back up against the wall, and it's off the wall. Hubbard looked like he had a bead on it, and it looked like it hit Hubbard and went over the wall as well. So Alicea, not known as a long ball threat, and they had shaded him to the opposite side anyway, shallow into left center, made Hubbard go way back. It'll be interesting to see because it looked like it was going to hit the lower portion of the wall, but it creeped over eventually for a ground rule double.
Well, he really crushed this ball. You can't hit the ball any harder than that. Hubbard going back as hard as he can. The ball hits right at the base of the wall and probably kicks back. We can't see there, but here we are again. He jumps, the ball hits, comes back, hits his knee, and goes out of the ballpark.
So it prevents a run from coming home against Kevin Brown. Clayton has to stop at third on the ground rule double. A break for the Dodgers for the moment. And Tom Goodwin slashing it down the left side. Out of play for strike one.
Now this is where your truly great pitchers will get out of this with minimal damage. And when I say that, you've got the Dodger infield back. Obviously 6-run lead. You're looking for outs. But right now, Kevin Brown, this is like the last out of the World Series to him.
Popped up on the infield. And as you mentioned, bears down and he gets the foul pop out for Karras. And Tom Goodwin doesn't let him get it out of the infield.
Pitching out of trouble. Tom Glavine, Maddox, Mussina, Johnson, Kevin Brown. Those guys that are #1 pitchers. Kurt Schilling. It doesn't matter if the bases are loaded.
And it comes after a mistake because normally he's not going to be burned by an Alicea on a 1-2 count when he's got the advantage.
Sometimes a pitcher does not have respect for a pinch hitter. He's mowing down everybody else, and you just look at all the thunder in this lineup, and then he gets a pinch hitter that he hasn't seen very much. He just goes at him, and boom. But why not? I mean, you got a 6-run lead. You got to go at him. You got to feel that your outfield's going to catch the ball, and he just went right at him like he should. But now you'll see him bear down, make pitches, and I'm not saying that they're not going to score a run, but it'll be very difficult because he's going to come at you with his best stuff.
A couple of former Cardinals on the bases. You saw Clayton down at third. Alicea with a ground rule double over at second. And a 2-0 count to Mark McLemore, who's flied out twice to the center fielder and the left fielder.
And right here, he will not give in. Although this is a 6-run ball game, he will not give in to Mark McLemore right down the middle. He's going to throw him some trick pitch, like the fastball that would cut. And the reason is he feels that he has 2 hitters to get 1 out. Once he gets behind McLemore, 2 left-handed hitters, McLemore, Greer, then he tries to make a perfect pitch. If he doesn't bite at it, then he moves on to the next hitter. He's going to still try to make a perfect pitch here with first base open.
Well, McLemore takes a strike on one that a little inside maybe, a little high, but a 3-1 count all of a sudden.
The thing is, he threw a juiced fastball middle plate, just trying to get the ball down the middle because he knows he's not swinging 3-0.
2 away, runners at second and third. Not close. Bases loaded for Rusty Greer on the 3rd walk of the game by Kevin Brown.
Well, as a manager, former player, that's all scripted. Once he got to 2-0, McLemore was not going to hit anything but his pitch. Now, bases loaded. He hasn't lost anything. In fact, now you have a play at any base. Your infield gets to play all the way back because of the forced play at second base. That's if he thinks that McLemore and Greer are equal hitters. In his mind, everybody's equal hitters.
Greer watches strike 1 on the sinker. Greer 0 for 2. Hit it hard his first time up there. Lined out to the center fielder.
You call that pitch a strike? The ball looked a little down there now. I was surprised.
Greer going up the middle, out of the reach of Vizcaino. That'll bring home Clayton as well as Alicea. And it's a 6-2 lead now for the Dodgers. Well, I felt that I'd rather take my chances with McLemore because Greer is a much better hitter. I just thought they'd go after McLemore. Greer's hit better than 300 3 years in a row, but you went down there. You had the uniform on all the time.
I'm with you, but I'm telling you that I know that's what he was thinking. And right there, fastball down, Greer ropes the center field, and when you go and you just look, all they say is just look at the bubblegum card, and they don't lie. And the bubblegum card on Rusty Greer is real good. 332, 321, 306 lifetime, 310, drove in 108 runs last year. And I'm with you, but there were so many times as a manager that I would feel one way and go out there and the pitcher would feel another way. And there's one thing for certain. If the guy on the mound is not convicted in what he wants to do, you're just wasting your breath. And you know, and it's not like you just let them rule the farm. I mean, but when he feels very strongly about it, I mean, he's the man with the ball, and especially a guy like Kevin Brown.
One swing, one-run game instead of bouncer. Forehands at the force play. And Brown gets out of a very dangerous situation. Taking care of Juan Gonzalez. One of the toughest threats in all of baseball. Dodgers by 4. Welcome back to Southern California once again as we move to the bottom of the 5th inning. 4-run lead for the Los Angeles Dodgers. The first anxious moments, though, for Kevin Brown. Dangerous situation.
Well, it really was. He started getting the ball up a little bit, and I think with the pinch hitter Alicea with 2 quick outs, he came in there and just did not respect him as much as he should. Threw the fastball right there. Alicea hit a bolt to center field. Then he chooses, I think, to pitch around McLemore after getting behind him 2-0, and that burned him. And so, you know, that is one thing that a pitcher does. That's one thing that a manager does. You make your mind up sometimes to pitch to the 8-hole hitter, thinking that the guy on the mound has enough ability to throw to spots, and then you get burnt by somebody flipping one over the infield, and that's what would get you run out of town, brother. You know, it's not an exact science.
Yeah, we saw Alicea come through as the pinch hitter. Now, with a new pitcher, do the same in a Holden situation. 4-run deficit for Burkett. He was just recently taken out of the starting rotation. He's given up 10 home runs. Second on the squad, only to Clark, who he replaces. And Luis Alicea also staying in the game, replacing Mark McLemore at second. Gary Sheffield with a base hit came around to score on the 3-run dinger by Eric Karros in the 6-run Dodger 4th. And Burkett, his best years with the San Francisco Giants, Ray, but as you know, he's got to have great location because he doesn't overwhelm it with overpowering stuff for people.
No, he throws a lot of curveballs, a lot of breaking balls, off-speed pitch. Basically a junk ball pitcher. Throws the fastball, tries to show it to you. There's a little cutter, 81 miles an hour. The first pitch, a curveball, 68. I mean, how many times do you see a pitcher come in 4-2 and he's thrown 2 pitches and hasn't thrown a fastball yet? Still hasn't thrown a fastball. That's a slow changeup.
I was going to say that took a while to get up to the plate.
This is a straight changeup, and he grips that ball way down in his palm. A good arm action. Gary, you're right on it, brother. You're just only about 2 feet ahead of it.
The 1-2 count to Sheffield. Going the other way, and Alicea on the short hop. 2 that almost ate him up. 2 quick hops from Sheffield for the first out of the inning. The opponents hitting 368 off Burkett so far this season. Boy, he's given up, as I mentioned, 10 home runs. You give up 10 home runs, 30 innings, 1 every 3. A ratio you don't want to hear about. 9.60 earned run average.
Ouch. Well, he put together some great years over there in San Francisco. My first year back into the big leagues in '93 as Davies hitting coach with the Reds. He went 22-7.
Pulled on the backhand side of Zeal. And Mondesi, one of the best at getting down the line from the right side of the plate, is the second out. So 2 up and 2 down very quickly.
First baseman, number 23.
Against John Burkett. And Eric Garros with a couple of forward, one away. And the Dodgers have not been able to capitalize with men in scoring position. Ray, you mentioned that number in their last 60 at-bats. Hitting less than 100 in those situations. Garros finally came through, and he was one of the worst in the National League, in fact, in that department. 238 with men in scoring position before that at-bat. A 3-run shot, his 8th of the year. And it gave the Dodgers an early 3-0 lead. They played it 3 more. They're up by 4, and it's ball 1. So Garros 1 for 2 on the night. He has been the constant with so many changes in his Dodger lineup. Down the middle, it's even a ball and a strike. Outside edge. Let's not forget the 4 runs is not much for the Texas Rangers to make up. They won it next innings last night, 7-6. Took the opener 3-2. Even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Garros went around. No, on the appeal play to Bruce Fremy.
You know, you mentioned Texas scoring runs are 4th in the American League with 329 runs scored coming into tonight's game, with Cleveland at 365 and Seattle at 362 and Toronto at 339. When I first came into professional baseball, Larry Shepard was a pitching coach for the Cincinnati Reds. And he talked about his club having a 4.25, 4.3 earner run average as a complete club. And if the offense scored 800 runs, that you would win. And, you know, you hear these things as time progresses. And you're talking about 1971 for me then. That's been a little while ago. Nowadays, clubs score 900, 1,000 runs. I mean, it has gotten crazy with the offensive numbers that are out there.
We just saw they average just about 6 a game. The bouncer off the glove of the shortstop, Royce Clayton, who's got a sore arm to begin with. And Garros is aboard with 2 down. You'd have to think they're finally going to call that one an error, and they do. Some questionable calls here tonight at Dodger Stadium.
Third baseman, number 25.
Well, this is a ball that he should come and get. Although you go to your left, you come and get that ball a little bit. Barry Larkin's so good at that play going up the middle, where you go left and you give a little ground. Once you gauge the ball and know you're getting to it, then you move toward the baseball, catch the ball at the top of the hop, then you're moving toward the bag to make the throw. Right there, giving a little ground, catching the ball at the bottom part of the hop, and that's usually when your foot hits the ground and your eyes jar a little bit.
That hasn't been a strong suit for the Rangers this year, fielding 4th from the bottom in overall team percentage. Give Dave Jansen an opportunity to hit in the bottom of the 5th. And it's ball 1 from Burkett. Well, you were just talking about their 285 average and the 6 runs per game. You told me an interesting story earlier about, you know, team batting average and everything. It used to be if you got a team to hit 270 during the season, 272, it was rock solid. The next to Hansen. Off speed, even at a ball and a strike.
And presently we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 teams hitting over 270.
Yeah, I like the chuckle. In disbelief.
11 teams hitting over 270.
Even at a ball and a strike. There goes Garros. But Rodriguez can't do a thing about it because Burkett never paid attention to Garros, who has very little speed but always picks the good time. He's an opportune base runner. He's always had a great success rate his entire Dodger career. He is 5 of 7 on the season with that stolen base and base hit, and the Dodgers have another run. Rodriguez disgusted. I think that's safe to say.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, you look at this right here. It's a 6-2 ball game. Anytime you're within 4 runs, you're there. And you just got to give Pudge a chance. You just can't forget about that runner over there. I mean, this is an unbelievable jump. He has 2 steps before Burkett's first move. I mean, geez. You're talking about the best throwing catcher of our era, and all you got to do is just hold him close, and that's what happens when pitchers just forget about. There's more things to just throwing the ball over the plate.
The 2-1 to Hansen. Even at 2 balls and 2 strikes, and it goes back to the numbers that we talked about with Pudge. That is the 10th steal with the opposition against the Texas Rangers. And this guy plays, obviously, about 99% of the time. He's caught 23.
Well, and after seeing that and seeing how poorly Mark Clark was holding runners, I don't know that you could ever run on him if you give him a chance. Well, I know you can't. You don't run on catchers. Not this type of catcher.
Another in no man's land. Burkett hustles and gets it across to Palmeiro in time. Good play by John Burkett to retire this side. After 5, it's still a 4-run lead for the Dodgers.
Larry Beal in the studio. You think Jeff Bagwell likes interleague play? Astros and White Sox tonight. Bags with not 1, not 2, but 3 home runs in one game. 13th time in history a player has had 2 3-homer games in one season. The final, Stros win 13-4. Back to L.A.
All right, Larry. Well, Jeff Bagwell has just moved into a tie for the National League lead in home runs with Sammy Sosa with those 3. 20 home runs on the season for Bagwell as Palmeiro slashes at it, pushes it out of play off to the left side for strike 1.
They're playing with Titleist there tonight.
I was going to say, they're not. Are they DT 90s?
No.
We know they're the hardcover.
Maybe Pinnacles, man. Jeez.
They're the wound 90s or 100 compression. I guarantee you Davey Johnson would agree with you. Great golfer. 0-2.
Every manager that I have talked to this year has mentioned the ball being smaller and tighter.
Palmeiro, Rodriguez, and Zeal.
Well, just think about it. I mean, just think about it. How can there be consistency in a baseball when you go from the year that I broke in, 1971, to 1998, everything technologically improves, and you're telling me that baseball making doesn't improve? Everything gets tighter, better, engineering. So, hey.
It's wide, it's 1-2. What about the composition of the bats?
I just didn't know. No, the composition of bats is the same. I look at those bats, and they still have dents in them. And that shows you how hard the ball is. The ball seams are denting the bats.
1-2.
But they went from horsehide to cowhide to jackrabbit hide. I don't know what they're at now.
Roadrunner. The 2-2. Sent down the line and left, but drifting into foul territory. And Kevin Brown started the inning with 72 pitches through 5. And we were talking about while we were away, averaging not quite 15 per frame. So close to $1.25 for the night through 8 if he can get to Jeff Shaw territory. But Palmeiro has fouled off 3-4 already. Towering pop up behind the plate. That'll drift into the seats. So we just saw those numbers for Kevin Brown. He only needed 5 at the first. Pretty consistent through the first 3. He's thrown 7 here in the 6th.
I've said this many times, Joel, that the research that I've done over the years that really a first-class 1 or 2, 3 starter will throw 15 pitches per inning. That's 105 pitches after 7, 120 after 8. And if you go a complete game, 135 pitches is what an economical starter will throw. 15 pitches in an economical inning, and or an average inning. And pitchers now, that's something I started probably 15 years ago. Pitchers now are running 18, 19, 20 pitches an inning. So after you get 5 innings, you're already at 100 pitches.
Palmeiro goes down swinging after what looked like it was going to be a good at bat. Went after one of the dirt for the second time tonight. He's been a victim of a strikeout twice. Well, tomorrow the PGA Tour rolls into Memphis for the FedEx St. Jude Classic. It's live from the TPC at Southwind. So join us as Nick Price defends his title against Davis Love III at Brack Faction. And then tomorrow at 4 o'clock and Friday at 1:30 Eastern on ESPN. It'll continue on ABC on Saturday and Sunday. Don't forget about the third round coverage, though, at 4 o'clock Eastern on ABC. Final round coverage on Sunday on ABC. As you brought up the titles, Bud Rodriguez watches it over the outside edge for strike one. So the PGA Tour on ESPN on both Thursday and Friday. Up the middle. Short hop by Vizcaino. And there's 2 down. And we talked about Eric Young coming back, but the Dodgers weren't afraid to admit a mistake, and Vizcaino, a similar situation. A good line drive hitter, went away. He's played with a number of clubs since Eric Young departed. Now Vizcaino back just like EY.
I really like Vizcaino. He's one of those guys that they talk about not having a lot of range, not having a great arm. He just gets the job done. Great guy to have on a ball club. Can play anywhere on the infield.
And he's been solid wherever he has been. You could put him out there at second, at short. He's played a little bit in the outfield, not much. Started with the Dodgers before he went to the Cubs. Productive seasons with the Cubs, especially in '93, hitting .287 with 550 at bats. Better than 300 with the Mets in '96, close to 300 the year before with the Mets. Now with the Indians, the Giants, and back with the Dodgers last year. The 2-0 to Zeal. Misses the inside edge. In fact, some around here have said that Vizcaino reminds a lot of the Dodger fans of Jim Gilliam, a guy that just was rock solid. Didn't overwhelm you. Just did the job.
Just doesn't make mistakes. And, you know, I'll take a group of players that are just average players that do things right and win. And Dusty Baker is doing that. That ball club. Go ahead, Nick.
Another chance for Vizcaino, and a real easy inning for Kevin Brown after he took care of Rafael Palmeiro.
Larry Beal with an update. It took a while, 4.5 hours. Blue Jays and Mets in the 14th inning. Ray Ordonez gets a hold of one with men on at second and third. The infield and the outfield were drawn in. It scores Luis Lopez. Mets win their 4th in a row, 4-3 and 14.
All right, Larry, and that was after that serious losing streak, that struggle for the New York Mets. 6-2 lead for Davey Johnson's Dodgers. The Dodgers hit in the bottom of the 6th inning, looking to salvage the final game of the 3-game set with the first-place Texas Rangers. Trinidad Hubbard coming up empty, strike one. Bottom 3 in the order: Hubbard, Pena, and Brown. Hubbard with a base hit, also struck out. It's wide. It's even. Had a ball and a strike. I don't know about you, and there's so much talk about interleague play now. Will they ever diversify interleague play? And we'll get to it after this next pitch. It's even to the Dodgers center fielder. 1-2. I'd like to see the Dodgers play the Boston Red Sox, and I'd like to see the other divisions. I'd like to see the American League East come out here, the Dodgers and the Yankees. It'd be nice if they started to mix things up down the road in interleague play. What about you?
I feel the same way. I do like the rivalries of Angels and Dodgers playing. Reds in Cleveland was great when I was there, but I believe, I mean, they talk about seeing Ken Griffey every night on ESPN, but it's not the same. Just giving the people in that area the opportunity to see these great players.
Inside outing it, Trinidad Hubbard. Good at bat on the 1-2 pitch from Burkett with a base hit. As you were about to say, the electricity, the excitement you get from seeing someone in person.
I mean, there are people that go from Michigan, that go from West Virginia and drive, you know, to wherever they have to go, Detroit, Cleveland, to see Ken Griffey Jr. People in Wyoming, you know, Colorado now with Griffey going there. They'll drive to wherever they have to drive. I mean, there are tremendous baseball fans in this country that take 4 and 5 weeks off to just go visit places. And I agree totally that if they're going to have interleague play, and I know how tough it is. I mean, I know how tough the travel is. That's the biggest thing, travel and scheduling and all that. Who do you pick to play whom? I mean, surely you'd like to see Boston play L.A. and Chicago Cubs go up and play New York. And the logistics are tough, but still.
But possibly move it around. So from year to year, the National League West faces the American League East. The
sure.
next year is something else.
Why not?
And you bring up the fact St. Louis draws from, what, 5 or 6 states in the Midwest. The Cardinals have always had that territory where everybody drives for a big weekend at Busch. Can you imagine with Ken Griffey Jr. going to Busch? Or Wrigley Field, for that matter.
And that's, you know, they say that with the All-Star games, that they move them around and they always go to locations enough that they're going to see the great players. They always use that as hey, you know, they can see Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, he's going to be in Pittsburgh this year, San Diego next year, Boston this next year, so they'll get to see him. But it's not, I mean, those guys usually play 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings. You get to see him in a home run hitting contest, and all those seats are sold out to season ticket holders.
Now, I'd love to see the National League West against the National League or the American League Central. Just move it around from year to year. Now, we've already seen John Burkett, by the way, throw it over 3 times with Trinidad Hubbard. Decent speed over at first base. Do you think what Pudge Rodriguez said when he never even looked over at, compared to Hubbard, Eric Garros, all due respect, is a Clydesdale, but he stole the base his 5th of the year because Rodriguez never had a chance to throw him out. He went out there and had a few choice words with John Burkett. And Angel Pena is punched out looking. Second time he has been struck out.
Well, take a look at the strikeout pitch here, and all it is just fastball right down the middle. Ain't nothing more, nothing less. I don't know what Pena was looking for, but something different than a fastball down the middle.
I think Pudge's message sang in though with Burkett.
You're exactly right. Knowing Pudge the way that I do, he went out there and said, Berkey, listen, you got to give me a chance. And that's all he said. Turned around and came back. I don't think he would chew him. Not in a game like this, but you know, he got his message across. You saw him jog out there. You picked it up, and you're absolutely right. He prides himself in that. I mean, it's a personal challenge. Everything's a challenge. Every pitch he's ready to throw. Every pitch.
Brown with the sacrifice. It's his 2nd successful one of the night. His 5th on the year. Goes 1-4 in the putout. And a man in scoring position with 2 down. And the top of the batting order coming up for the Dodgers. Well, you had some light moments with Davey Johnson, some classic moments, winning a World Series, going to a League Championship Series as an assistant coach for him. And obviously some light moments. You both worked under Marge Schott. Davey was with Marge from 93 to 95, and he said, you know, Marge, actually, she called me to have a glass of red wine once because she knows I like red wine. And Davey went on to say, but I like it better when it hasn't been chilled, it doesn't come with a screw-off cap. Tough.
That's tough.
Very tough. That from Davey Johnson.
You know,
he's a good man, as you said. Straightforward approach. EY, Eric Young, going up the middle. Out of the reach of the second baseman, Alicea. And did that sacrifice by Kevin Brown mean just a little bit? Insurance and a 5-run cushion again for the Dodgers.
You know, we were talking about leadoff hitters earlier, and I'll tell you one thing that you have to consider about a leadoff hitter is the fact that when you have a pitching staff that understands how to get people over, as Burkett looks back there, a second look, you've got to consider the ability to drive in runs of your leadoff hitter. It's not just the fact that he can get on base percentages, steal bases, because he's going to have a lot of chances to drive in 2-out runs.
Well, as much as Davey Johnson in the last couple of weeks when Devon is healthy has experimented with Devon White batting first and EY second, Eric Young is your prototypical leadoff hitter. He is a classic contact man. And that he fought off. They got it up at the second baseman's head. Jose Vizcaíno hitting with 2 down. And the Dodgers tonight have finally capitalized with men in scoring position. Tied for the worst mark in the National League. 4 for 5.
Yeah, what Davey will tell you, he's a math major, and he'll tell you that that's just a number begging to be corrected.
Well, what about the stories when he used to bring in statistics, sheets of information to Earl Weaver, who would throw them in the garbage can when he played for Earl in Baltimore, and then Davey would say later, I got a feeling, though, when I left the room, he went back to the can and got him out.
Well, you know the Earl Weaver story, I know, with all those cards, index cards. He didn't have scouting reports. He had about however many players were in the league. If there were 455 players in the league, he had a 3x5 index card with every player and his own evaluation of that. Now, that's Davies, and that's where you get from Elias. You get all the stats, pitcher batter matchups, righty lefty, day night, pitch out.
Pudge ready on the pitch out because Eric Young is third best in the National League with 22 steals. He thrives on these.
Well, he's out there, and he doesn't need a pitch. And what you will always see is when a catcher calls a pitch out, he always throws the ball somewhere. Now, right here, Eric Young, if he's going to run, he'll run after the pitch out.
2-1 count. Vizcaino at the plate, almost leaning the opposite direction he wanted to be in.
There wasn't any almost about it. That was a full body lean.
He's talking to himself a little bit.
Look. Hey, man, he'd already started.
Well, you called it. 2-1 count. And after a pitch out.
Well, how many times have you seen managers double up on pitch outs? Just don't do it. Only once for me. Renee Latchman doubled up on me when I was managing once. Threw Dion out.
I was going to say once or twice a millennium. It's off the end of the bat, cute foul by Vizcaino. Even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. We're at the bottom of the 6th inning. 2 down. Dodgers with a 5-run lead. Back to a 5-run lead, led by as many as 6. Got it up to 5 on the RBI single by the young man over at first base, Eric Young. Trying to get in scoring position. 2-2. He's on his way. Bouncer for Alicea charging. The easy one in the soft toss to Palmeiro. But the Dodgers do get another run. They capitalize on that leadoff single by Trinidad Hubbard and go up 7-2.
Larry Beal in studio. Cards Royals pitchers duel. It was 9-9 when the Royals erupted for 8 runs in the 8th. Mike Sweeney with a double scores a pair. Joe Randa 5 for 5 in this game. Mark McGuire hit his 19th. The final 17-13 KC.
So 2 touchdowns and a field goal for the Royals tonight as they win by 4. Cardinals missed an extra point, 17-13. And welcome back to Dodger Stadium. Bottom of the order, Royce Plate taking strike 1 from Kevin Brown. Joel Myers along with Ray Knight. Alicea coming up next on the double switch, getting in the number 9 slot, and then back to the top of the order. And Tom Goodwin. Ball and a strike to Clayton. On a base hit, scored one of the 2 runs for the Texas Rangers back in the 5th. Off-speed delivery, 2-1. So Kevin Brown trying to make it through 8 to set things up if they want to go to Jeff Shaw. Dodgers bullpen somewhat depleted after that long game last night. Just missing the outside edge. Brown has walked 3 so far this evening. Only a real difficult inning for him, the 5th. After he walked McNamara. Load the bases and gave up the RBI single to Rusty Greer. Royce Clayton out of St. Bernard's High School right here in Southern California. Playa del Rey. Thought he'd be a Giant for a long time. Go figure. As Karros backs up, Brown has to hustle and just barely beats Clayton to the bat. It's funny the way things work, though, in baseball, because Clayton had a good start with the Giants in his young career. And then, boom, on his way to the Cardinals. And again, not even there. Just shy of a couple of years. Everybody thought he'd stay there and replace Ozzie Smith. He's on his way with Todd Stottlemyre in the Tatis trade.
And you're right, go figure, because you look at him in San Francisco as a young player, good range, good arm. A hitter that was hitting 7th in that order. He went over to St. Louis, played very solidly, warranted, and I think won that job. Not warranted, but won that job from Ozzie. And I thought he'd be their shortstop for the future, but they make a trade. And now they have Renteria, who, in my mind, is Barry Larkin's a better offensive player. Ordonez is a better defensive player, but Renteria may be the best National League shortstop all the way around when things are right. He's been crippled up a little bit this year.
But you like the package overall.
Yeah, just 21 years old and can do so much. Came in the league mature. Renteria did. But Clayton has had some arm problems and
suffering those same arm problems right now. He's got a sore muscle right behind his shoulder as Hansen drops the easy out. Don't see that too often. That'll be an error on the third baseman. Alisea was on his way back to the dugout.
Well, you know, this was to play part-time. I always thought, although I played a lot of late defensive infield, that it was tougher to play defense than it was to hit, because you're just not out there every day and you can't simulate a defensive situation off the bat. Hansen, I mean, that's a DH play right there. You know. And
Hansen, you bring it up, has been the best pinch hitter for the Dodgers as they punch out. Alisea did go around with a strikeout for Kevin Brown. And get back to that thought in just a moment, Ray. But don't forget Friday, ESPN begins its coverage. The 50th College World Series live from the Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska. Bring you up to 13 games for the championship. It all starts Friday, 3:30 Eastern. Crimson Tide taking on the Cowboys from Oklahoma State. It continues at 7:30 with Rice taking on the top seed, the Hurricanes of Miami. And our coverage goes all the way through the 18th of June. Join us for the College World Series. See you at Paulie's in Omaha. 2 down, bases empty. Tom Goodwin at the plate. And someone waiting in the wings. And, you know, you brought up the pinch hitting duties. Hansen has been a great pinch hitter for the Dodgers, and that's what he was used as when Tommy Lasorda groomed him. When Tommy was throwing extra BP every day to Dave Hansen a few years back. Goodwin with a fly ball. The center fielder Hubbard. And a very easy inning. Second inning in a row that Kevin Brown has set him down in order. 7th inning stretch time at the stadium with Dodgers power players coming up, leading by 5.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by TGI Fridays. In here, it's always Friday. And by the people inspired to build vehicles for your mind and heart. Nissan, driven.
Welcome back once again to Chavez Ravine. Absolutely perfect night for baseball in Southern California. The second half of our doubleheader on ESPN. 10 years covering Major League Baseball. Good to have you with us. Joel Meyers along with Ray Knight. The Dodgers with a 5-run lead after the Rangers took the first 2 games of this 3-game set. 1-run decisions. Both of those games, Texas has been great in that department this year. 11-4 in 1-run games. The Dodgers just a little bit over the 500 mark in similar situations as Burkett gets ready for his 3rd inning of work. And Sheffield pulls it foul. What was it? Scout Mel Didier of the Dodgers said when Sheffield came up, and the #1 pick out of Tampa, Hillsborough High School, said that he was so strong he could pull a bullet. That's strong, and that's bat speed. In an 0-1 hole. Outside edge, 0-2. Sheffield with a hit and 3 at-bats tonight.
As far as just pure speed, and I know Joe's got that bat track, and a lot of these big guys can wind it up and let it go, but he and Barry Bonds.
Bouncer for Clayton. And there's 1 down, you were about to say.
He and Barry Bonds were the 2 hitters that we could not pitch in.
Right fielder number 40.
And you see a lot of that kind of segues me into what we see with Jarrett Wright, a lot of these young pitchers trying to pitch in and not knowing how to pitch in. And when I say you can't pitch them in, is if you don't have a veteran staff that understands the philosophy of pitching in, and they try to go in there, they don't get it in enough, and they hit it out there about 420 feet. When you pitch somebody in, you got to pitch them in right above the belt, about 4 or 5 inches off the plate to get them off the plate. And there's just not enough space in there. And for some reason, pitchers have a tough time. The last 10 years, pitchers have had a tough time getting the ball in that area without either hitting somebody or it going wild over their head. Just right there where Raul has his hands about probably 10 inches below his hands is where you have to pitch in. Watch when he sets up here. And we need to talk about this a little bit more. Look at the left shin guard of Rodriguez. Comes straight up to where his elbow is. And then straight up from there, that little space right underneath Raul's elbow is where you have to throw the ball. And there's only about a 6-inch area in there. But hitters cannot hit it fair. Watch this swing right here on a slider, a breaking ball. I mean, if I were going up there against Burkett, I would think nothing but soft. He has not thrown anything over 86 miles an hour. Can't throw the ball by you. So think soft, hit the ball to right field. Look at that, 85 miles an hour. That's a batting practice fastball. So, I mean, there's no reason to be out in front of this guy unless his deception is that good. And as you said, everybody's hitting, what, the league's hitting 360 off of him, so it can't be that good.
2-2.
But it is a very tough thing. I heard on ESPN today in SportsCenter about the changeup. It's a very difficult thing when you're geared to get the bat started and let it fly to keep your body back and keep it from floating.
Patience.
He's going to throw him something soft here. There's no way he's going to throw him a fastball.
Well, Rodriguez is setting up inside. He was over the outside portion of the plate. A towering pop-up in the shallow right. Gonzalez hasn't had any action all night long and finally gets something.
Well, at least
the second out of the 7th.
Excuse me, buddy. At least he hit it the right way. A little slider, 82 miles an hour, pulled off the ball.
First baseman number 23.
But at least the right approach.
Mondesi disappointed without a hit tonight. He did walk and came around to score back in the 4th. When Eric Karros gave the Dodgers a 3-0 lead. 3-run shot turned out to be a 6th-run 4th inning for the Dodgers. They played it 3 more. Meanwhile, Eric Young knocked in 2 of those 6. Inside edge, that neighborhood you were talking about. Ball 1 a little bit tight.
Well, if you know anything about the mechanics of hitting, if that ball is in there, the only way that you hit it really solid is hit it foul.
This a rope down the line in the left, out of reach of Rusty Brewer. And a 1-hop the wall. Karros cruising into second with his 2nd extra base hit of the evening. That is his 16th double.
And what that was, Joel, was a pitch in. He did not get all of that ball, or he'd hit it 9 miles. He got jammed just a little bit on this ball. But look right there, the ball's on the inside part of the plate. And he's able to keep his bat in a fair zone by keeping his shoulder tight and not turning off the ball. But that ball just a little down on the barrel. And that's what you call missing inside.
Adjusting was Eric Karros. And Johnny Oates is ready to go to the pen for the 2nd time this evening with 2 away. And a man in scoring position in the bottom of the 7th. So a pitching change for the Rangers. We'll come right back to Southern California.
Larry Beal in studio. Cubs and Diamondbacks. Power versus power. Randy Johnson, Sammy Sosa. That is gone. Number 21 for Sammy. I got your big unit right here. Cubs trying to come back. They trail 8-4.
So Sammy Sosa regaining the lead in the National League with 21 home runs. Bagwell with 3 tonight. Right behind him with 20. And Mike Venefro has taken over. 29th round draft choice. First ball swinging Dave Hansen, the slow roller to the second baseman. So Venefro comes in and does a great job. Their bullpen, one of the best in baseball. Zimmerman, Benefro included. We'll have a pinch hitter, most likely for Texas, coming up. Dodgers are trying to get back to the 500 mark tonight at 29 and 29. They've got a 5-run lead as we head to the 8th inning. Welcome back to Dodger Stadium. Joel Meyers with Ray Knight. 6-run, 4th inning. The difference for Los Angeles. Now the pitcher's spot, as I mentioned before we broke away, lead things off for the Texas Rangers. So Greg Zahn is going to be the pinch hitter. And Mark Clark was cruising through 3, got the leadoff man in the 4th, retired 9 in a row, in fact, with that leadoff man in the 4th. But things fell apart. Kevin Brown rolling along, 100 pitches so far, looking for his 2nd complete game of the season. But Mark Clark gone after giving up 6 earned runs in a little more than 4 innings. Greg Zahn, the pinch hitter, reserve catcher, a 27-year-old. Came over from the Florida Marlins as he squibs it foul. So the pitcher spot in the order, and then the heart of the order, Greer and Gonzalez, if the Rangers are going to do anything to get back into this game. Down and in. 2 balls and a strike. Last year with the Marlins in 106 games, Zahn didn't bat 200, but drills this one up the middle, a soft one off the back handle, and there it goes, ranging over. So it caught him inside the trademark and died quickly for the first out. Ryan Lynn, the right-hander, getting ready to work for the bottom of the 8th. And one of the pleasant developments for the Dodgers. Out of the pen, Pedro Borbon Jr.
Davey had a lot of good things to say about him out of baseball for 2 years.
Yeah, that elbow surgery.
Yeah.
What a comeback story he has turned out to be, right? Rusty Greer at the plate has knocked in the only 2 runs of the night for Texas. They had 1-0. Make it 2 balls, no strikes. But Borbon throwing it harder than he felt like he did even before the elbow surgery. Great command of his pitches as well. 3 straight out of the zone. In fact, the opponent's only hitting a .148 off Borbon so far this season. A 5-run lead. You don't think you're going to see Jeff Shaw anyway. Outside edge. 3-1. Ishmael Valdez, 5-4 mark so far this season, 3.69 earned run average. He's had the problems with the blisters. Starting the series, and a diving play by Hansen. So go figure. He drops a little bloop in front of the photographer's rub in foul territory the last inning, and now goes parallel to the ground with a Gold Glove play.
I can tell you, you go figure this. Anytime it's a reactive play, you've got a better chance to make it than when it's one you have to think about. All that is just athleticism, reacting. Watch right here. It's just a line shot, moves 1 step, dives, catches the ball. See you. That's just reaction.
Juan Gonzalez going around for strike 1.
And I've always said, I mean, if you look at your great tennis players, and I mean, those balls come in there 100 miles an hour, and they react and hit them. If you start thinking about what you're going to do, you know, you're thinking wrong. Just see the ball and hit it. Focus and catch it. Let your eyes are by far your greatest asset. If you can trust your eyes and just react to what your eyes see, offensively and defensively. Oh, that was
Right
ugly.
by Gonzalez, 0-2. So he's going after 2 out of the strike zone to start this at bat.
Well, his heart might have been there, but as the old saying, his butt wasn't. It was gone. Now he ought to bust him inside right here.
Didn't have to worry about that. Another strikeout, the 3rd over the last 3 innings for Kevin Brown. Could be his last inning of work. We'll find out. The Dodgers have a comfortable cushion of 5. 7-2 lead for the Dodgers in the bottom of the 8th inning. As Kevin Brown had only one inning where they really got to him, and they scared him a little bit. Rusty Greer knocked in a couple. 2 were aboard when Juan Gonzalez came to play. But he took care of Gonzalez the last couple of times he's seen him. The Orioles and the Braves, our ESPN Sunday night game of the week, brought to you by Gum Out. Join John Miller and Joe Morgan. It'll all come your way at 8 o'clock Eastern Sunday night. ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. As we get ready for the Orioles and the Atlanta Braves. Oh, we saw him warming up in the pen. Ryan Glenn, the 4th pitcher of the evening, following Benefro, Burkett, and the starter Clark to the hill. Made 3 starts for the Rangers. He was called up from Oklahoma on May 16th when the Rangers decided to go with 12 pitchers. And it sure paid dividends because Jeff Zimmerman was one of those guys they decided to go with. Included in that 12. Backs up Trinidad Hubbard at ball 1. Productive night for Hubbard. A couple of hits. Scored a couple of runs. On the end of that foul. Even at a ball and a strike. Glenn goes at 6'3", 195-pounder. He's only 24. 4th round pick of the Rangers back in '95. His first tour of duty in the majors. Jamie Arnold, the right-hander. We just saw the lefty throwing. Now it's Arnold, the right-hander. It's Pedro Boboin in the last half inning. The 1-2. Pretty good velocity. Even at 2 balls and 2 strikes from Glenn. Well, will he throw more than 112? We'll find out. He's due to hit 3rd as Trinidad Hubbard, a strikeout victim. That's where it begins for Ryan Glenn.
Catcher, number 36.
Well, Davey always believes in tacking on, and with Arnold up throwing with a 5-run lead, I've got to believe that he's going to get him some work. He's a nice breaking ball there. That's a real tight breaking ball. Didn't believe it. But he's starting to believe it now as he starts to grab a little bit of that time.
Fastball pulled by Pena. Easy play from 3rd baseman Zeal. And quickly they're 2 down. Good looking right-hander Ryan Glenn played his college ball at VMI. Native from Portsmouth, Virginia.
Number 54. Chance Sanford.
Well, we are going to have a pinch hitter, so that's it for Kevin Brown. Chance Sanford, a real puppy, has just joined the Dodgers. This is only his 8th big league at bat. And it's over the outside edge for strike 1. Glenn not wasting any time. So Kevin Brown threw after 112 pitches, giving up 2 runs on 5 hits. He's always got that pleasant look on his face. 0-2. His teammates appreciate his intensity. Stanford out of the way. 1-2. So Jamie Arnold is going to be the new pitcher for the Dodgers. As we talked about it at the top of the telecast, Davey Johnson nowhere ready to jump on his glove and pull the panic button. Sanford gets his 2nd hit. He's 2 of 8. Pulling the fastball in the 1-2 count. And that's because a third of the way through the season, they have not done well with men in scoring position. Tied for the worst mark of the majors in that department. But still, with a win tonight, back to the 500 mark. And they stay within 5 games of the first place Arizona Diamondbacks.
Well, Davey pointed out to me, he said, my number 1 starter is Kevin Brown. My number 2 starter is Chan Ho Park. Valdez is number 3. Perez is number 4. And Dreifert's number 5. And the only person that is even pitched close to what he can pitch is Kevin Brown. And Valdez is 5-4 with 3.69. Not too shabby. But Perez, 2-7 with a 6.18. And then Dreifert, 5-4 with a 5.86.
Going the other way. 3rd hit of the night in 3 runs as well. Sanford will easily make it into the 3rd. And runners at the corners. What a night for EY.
Just to further that thought, you mentioned about no one really driving in runs.
Number 5.
And I think Hundley is going to be a real key. Getting Todd Hollingsworth back as Eric Young hits the ball to right field extremely well. Just does not try to do too much with it. Stays inside the baseball. A lot of base hits that way. And he has had a big night. He's a little pumped up.
And we got to kick out
Shelby.
The last time he was on at first, we got to kick out the challenge because he wanted to try to steal one on Pudge Rodriguez. Almost got caught a couple of times leaning in the wrong direction, but you could tell it meant a lot to him.
And in this situation, 7-2, 2 outs. I will bet you Davey Johnson has a hold sign on. And what that is a lot of these guys are on their own. That means they can steal whenever they want to, whenever they can get a jump, as opposed to the manager picking a pitch. You pick a pitch and go on it. But the manager always has a sign that he holds you, meaning you cannot run no matter what.
Bouncer for Clayton. He can take care of it himself, and he will for the Force play. As you mentioned, Young was not in the mood. Vizcaino, the Force out in the final out of the inning. To the 9th, Jamie Arnold taking it over for Brown. And the Dodgers hold up with that 5-run lead.
Larry Beal in studio updating the Cubs and Diamondbacks. Remember, Arizona had an 8-1 lead. The Cubs have come back. Top of the 8th, Manny Alexander base hit up the middle, scores Tyler Houston. And then Sammy Sosa at the plate. Young Kim strikes him out. But it's now 8-7. Cubs right back in the game.
And we move to the top of the 9th inning. Thank you, Larry Beal. As Rafael Palmeiro will lead things off for the Texas Rangers. Chance Sanford taking over for Eric Young after Young had 3 hits, drove in 3 runs tonight. Sanford, the pinch hitter for Kevin Brown, and the new pitcher is Jamie Arnold. Arnold roughed up recently. 2-1 record, 4.09 earned run average. But still, opponents only hitting .238 off Arnold so far this season. Palmeiro, Rodriguez, and Zeal coming up. And it's ball 1 to start the top of the 9th.
This is one of those Davey Johnson projects. A young man that spent 7 years in the minor leagues, never having a chance to pitch in the big leagues. Signed by the Dodgers as a free agent January 6th this year. And Davey saw something out of spring training. And what that is a guy that has 3 pitches, fastball, split finger slider. Started him in a game a couple of weeks ago, went 6 innings through 60 pitches. And he said he thinks he's going to be the guy that's going to solidify the middle of his bullpen.
Walks the leadoff man, Palmeiro.
Catcher number 7, Devon.
And don't forget to join us in just a few minutes. Could be a few minutes. We'll find out if Arnold can get the job done. Kenny Mayne, Bill Pito with SportsCenter. Game 5 of the Nixon Pacers. Dominator update as the Stanley Cup Finals continue. What a night for Jeff Bagwell of the Houston Astros. So Kenny Mayne, Bill Pito, and SportsCenter coming up right after the second half bar doubleheader on Wednesday Night Baseball. Leadoff man aboard, Palmeiro. Rodriguez after the first one. Can they turn 2? Low throw by Arnold. Good scoop by Vizcaino. And the pitcher is bailed out. Rodriguez just grounded into his 13th double play to make that his 14th. His second of the night. That leads the majors. In fact, the Texas Rangers as a group have that dubious distinction. They have grounded into 61 double plays.
Well, that right there is not a real smart piece of hitting. You've got a runner on first base. He walks on 4 pitches. Kevin Brown sitting there. He likes it. But you have probably never seen Arnold. And you swing at the first pitch you see.
Todd Zeal, last chance time to keep it alive for the Rangers. Take strike 1. ball and a strike. So Kevin Brown on his way to his 7th win. And out away from that, but now a strike away from that. A ball and 2 strikes. And the Dodgers were desperate. They could not afford to be swept at home by the Texas Rangers and fought a couple of games up the 500 mark. Fortunately for the Dodgers, though, it was Brown's turn in the rotation. And Zeal on a nasty breaking ball just got a piece of it. It remains a ball and 2 strikes. But as you mentioned, Ray, if the other pitchers can come around, because you talked to David before the game, and his other starters have not been as effective. Jano Park close to a 5 ERA. Valdez has been solid at 3.69. He's running to some top block. And the comeback is just over the head of Arnold. Barehanded. This guy in it. Danny's right in. Ended for the Dodgers. Not a bad backup at shortstop, and a solid start tonight for Kevin Brown, who raises his record to 7-3.
Well, anytime you have him as your staff head, you got a chance to win a whole lot of ball games. This club is going to get cranked up. There's a lot of talent out here. I think Davey would get them right, and they're going to make a lot of noise in this division before it's all over with.
So the Dodgers back to the break-even point. They're at 29-29 and stay at least within 5 of the first place Arizona Diamondbacks. Well, don't forget Sunday night, our exclusive coverage of the Major League Game of the Week on Sunday night on ESPN. With the Baltimore Orioles matching up with the Atlanta Braves. It all begins at 8 o'clock Eastern. Coming up next, it's Sports Center with Kenny Mayne and Bill Vito. Highlights of that big matchup between the Pacers and the Knicks. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. And more, log on to ESPN.com. Part of the Go Network. That is Go.com. Now for Ray Knight, I'm Joel Myers. Thanks for joining us. So long, everybody. Stick around for Sports Center.